I'm in Spokane. That is the corner of Stephens and Sprague, and I'm waiting for a bus, but I'm not at the transit mall because this is a long distance bus, so it leaves from here. And I got here early. It actually leaves in an hour, so I'm gonna go and walk around downtown Spokane and come back, 10 or 15 minutes before that bus leaves. I've been waiting and walking around the block a couple times, and there's 6 minutes to go, and this is where I start to get nervous because there's just a PDF online with the schedule, and is the bus actually going to come? Well, of course we still have 6 minutes, but when you're taking a new bus, it always feels a little bit like, I hope I got this right. The bus I'm taking, which will hopefully come down one of those roads in another couple minutes, is a rural bus, and it goes twice a day, and on Wednesday today it goes 3 times a day, which is why I'm here today. Has a midday trip, and because it's just that bus and a couple other rural routes, there's nowhere to sit down or anything here, because it's only a couple times a day, which is kind of annoying. I'm getting tired of walking around, but none of that is going to ruin my trip. Well, we have some type of E450 bus coming in. That is kind of what I'm looking for, and I'm going to assume that, okay, I think this is what I'm looking for. Okay, I'm going to go jump on. Footage on the bus might be limited until I get where I'm going. Depends on how rude I'm going to be. I don't know if there's much that we can see through the dots. We're just getting on the freeway now, going west, I believe. So we're on the freeway now, but I think we're going to be getting off the freeway and onto a highway pretty soon. So the scenery has looked like this for a while, and it took us a while to leave Spokane, and we went through some stuff, and no reason to show it, especially through the dots. So not really a lot to say until we get to our destination. I just got off that bus. I didn't show a lot of the trip here, but I think I showed enough. And this is Davenport, Washington, county seat of Lincoln County. We're about 40 miles west of Spokane. We're in the middle of farm country, and I showed a little bit of that. And so I'm just going to walk around town, and I have 4 hours until that bus comes back. So let's see what happens. Well, my first point of interest, there is a library. Let's actually see if it's open. It is open today, but not until 3 to 7. If you look at those hours, they are somewhat limited. I think that is 16 hours a day, but I'm not complaining, and I will check that out later. And yeah, I'm just going to walk around town and see what's here. If you look at that building, and you look at that building, and some other buildings around here, these are all substantial buildings, big brick buildings. Right now, the population of this city, I just checked, is about 1,800 people, and the county, Lincoln County, has about 10,000 people in an area about half the size of Connecticut, maybe. So this is actually looks like a bigger town than it is. You have these big brick buildings, you have a real main street, probably because at one point agriculture was more important, and a lot of these towns that were built as farming towns and as transportation centers were once substantial towns. They have that substantial urban architecture with 2-story brick buildings, where other towns of the same size in other places would be more modern, more spread out. Case in point, that is not a 1970s ranch home or mobile home. That's a substantial and really nice looking building. Looks like they're renovating it, which I approve of. Now the other side of that we will see in a minute. This road, incidentally, is U.S. Highway number 2, northmost highway in the United States. That's why it's number 2. And it runs from the Puget Sound in that direction, through Washington, turns and goes north, and then runs along the highway of Montana into North Dakota, roughly paralleling the course of the Empire Builder. And also there you can see west of Wenatchee, and I think that's about 100 miles away, and as far as I know, between here and Wenatchee, this is the largest city, so there's 100 miles past here where, well, we will see what it is. So right there, we have the municipal airport, obviously General Aviation Airport. Probably some of that is for pleasure, but also some of that is probably agriculture, utility, firefighting utility. And then if you look this way, you see these fields. And as far as I know, it is about like 100 miles past here until you get to anything substantially bigger. There might be some towns of equal size, but past here, until you get to Wenatchee, I believe it is pretty much this for a long while. That bus said Creston, so apparently you can get to Creston on a bus, at least sometimes, and I will have to look at those routes, but not today. 81 Fahrenheit, 1:50 p.m. And that's pretty dry 81 Fahrenheit, so it's comfortable in a way that obviously wouldn't have been in Costa Rica. You have a nice little breeze, so this is a pleasant day. Today is also my birthday, and so yeah, it's a good, pleasant day. Look at that blue sky, just walking around a small town. It's what I like to do. We saw where the town ended behind me. If we look forward, you can see that's the exit out of town. So this main street is the biggest thing for many miles away. It's about 40 miles east of Spokane, or maybe 20 miles to the airport and areas like that. And then, like I said, a long ways. So this is kind of an oasis. And it's big enough to have a Safeway. And I will probably be going to that Safeway later after I walk around. And for connoisseurs of Safeway, you can see that's an old style Safeway with the patented Safeway roof design. So this is a real estate company agency. I talked actually to a real estate agent. We talked about what's going on here, where compared to, you know, areas in Spokane or in Seattle, it's a lot cheaper, but we're still seeing the same bubbling up. So $215,000 on a basic 3-bedroom house. Really cheap compared to, you know, what we're used to on the coast or even in the mountains. But compared to like we're even, you know, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you could actually still get a house in Portland for 5 figures. It's changed a lot. Anyway, I'm not a super expert on that, but, and you know, I talked a little bit with him about, like, do people commute from here? Is it regular commuters, irregular commuters, retirees? Probably a little bit of all of those. And part of that, lamentably, there was also commercial real estate listed. You can see here we have an old hardware store and it's empty. A lot of that commercial real estate was being offered for 5 figures here. You know, nice old downtown, but how many shoppers, how many customers do you actually have in these nice old storefronts? There's a museum here. I'm going to check out the hours because I was planning to do some more walking, but if it's closing soon, then I'll go in right now. Probably ask them a couple of questions. So the woman at the museum helped me out with something, which we were talking about. Well, this used to be a rail depot city, and is the rail depot still there? She says it's probably not, but I'm going to check out later if there's remnants. We also talked about, is this where the Empire Builder goes through? The thing is, because the Empire Builder goes through at 4 or 4:30 a.m. or whatever it is, nobody would know. Also, today's my birthday, and the woman had the same name as my mother, so that's, I think, kind of like a sign or something. Ickback. Okay, well, I need to sit down and eat something for a while. So I'm in a Subway, then behind the Subway, I have an old diner. So I did eat lunch at Subway, which I do when I'm traveling. And interesting to note, this city does not really have any chain businesses other than the Safeway and the Subway, well, the Napa Auto Parts. And those are like the chains that you see in small towns in the Northwest that are not big enough to go through the entire treatment. And maybe I missed it, maybe there's like a McDonald's on the way outside of town, but there's not like an entire low glow strip. And I do like that, and it's kind of interesting. You know, I've brought up this contradiction before. What do we have here? We have a town that's walkable with residential and commercial areas close together, nice open spaces. We even have some transit. A little free library over there. And so you look at the contradiction that, you know, you have a town of 1,800 people in a really rural area, but in a way you have urbanism here. Look at these buildings. This is not suburban sprawl hell. So, you know, interesting to look at that, and, you know, all the classifications you have for towns, a lot of times they don't quite fit. I have this little creek here. We have a park over here. Of course, I'll be coming to see that park later, but now I'm going to walk up this road, walking uphill here, see a little bit more of the residential part of town, and also I'm looking to find the railroad tracks. So this is more typical of what the town looks like. I've seen some fancy houses, but there's also some later houses and more modest houses. Also, remember when I talked about my Battleground video, I was talking about when I lived in Battleground, there was 3,000 people and no chain businesses yet when I was a kid. So this actually looks close to what the Battleground I grew up in looked like. Well, I've reached the end of town in this direction, and you can see there are grain elevators. On the other side of it is the railroad tracks. I don't know if this is public here or if this is private. Sometimes it's best not to find out. And what I was trying to do was see if there was an old, like, passenger depot here. It's not in that direction, so I might have to walk around and see if it's over there. So I circled around. Still don't see anything railroad depot like, and I do see the exit out of town here. So I'm going to walk to those tracks and kind of scan up and down and see if I see anything. If not, I'm going to walk back into town proper. You can see there's also several sets of tracks, and those are big grain elevators. And like I said, in Cheney, you know, agriculture here in eastern Washington is big bulk quantities of wheat. It is not Farmer Jones and his pumpkin patch, and that's certainly the case here. And as far as my question, I cannot currently see anything that looks like it was a railroad depot. See a sign there that says Davenport. So that, I guess, will have to be a mystery. The other question surrounding that is when there was last rail passenger service here. And indeed, you know, in between Minneapolis and Chicago, they put the Aurora Borealis train in recently. If they put something similar, something that copied the Empire Builder between Spokane and Seattle, would this be a stop? I imagine it might be. But as it is now, you know, the Empire Builder is not going to stop here at 4:30 a.m. to pick up 2 people a year. It would be even more least used than Wishram. That being said, and having seen that part of town, I'm going to walk back into town. It's past 3, so let's check out the library. The town, as I walk around, continue to see older and fancier architecture styles mixed with things that are slightly newer but still nice. So, interesting place from an architecture point of view. Really pretty town to look at. Well, I've walked back to the museum, the library. I'm going to go see if the library is open as promised. It was a nice little library, small, packed with books, pretty crowded with people. There was like 5 or 6 people in there, pretty good for a Wednesday afternoon. So another place, let's go. I'm going to go over and look at the post office. Then I'm going to finally check out that park and sit down for a while. I've been walking, it's still hot. So I finally reached this park, which was one of the things I wanted to check out. And it's not a large park, but it looks like a nice park. So I'm going to walk through here slowly and hopefully sit down for a minute. Oh look, we also have a pedestrian bridge. You know how I love pedestrian bridges. We have this little creek. I don't even know the name of this creek, and I haven't seen it yet. It might be really seasonable, and we're in kind of a dry area, so it might be already low, because it's not coming out of the mountains, it's coming out of the hills. I mean, not terribly low, but not a rip-roaring creek either. Though based on what I know, this might be liable to flood up to this level or higher. That's just speculation though. Let's see what we have in the creek. Will we see some alligators? I didn't see any in Costa Rica, so I'm probably not going to see any here. This could also be a canal or somehow channelized, I'm not sure. Yep, I'm just going to sit down here for a minute. Enjoy the day, enjoy the shade, and enjoy the light breeze. I just hope that Old Man Willow here doesn't try to trap me in these roots. I was wrong about the limited amount of chain businesses because there's one more, and this is new. A Dollar Tree and a Family Dollar together. Now that's the same company with different marketing and branding, but here they're together. Are there two separate like sets of clerks or something, or just the merchandise of both? But in other words, or also remember, yeah, you also have cannabis and tacos. So cannabis, tacos, and Dollar Tree seems like a perfect world for some people. The road there, that's Highway 2 out of town. We saw it going west. This is it going east. So you have Rearden in about a dozen miles, and then west side of Spokane in another dozen miles, and then in 40 miles from here to Spokane, more or less. So I did have a point about that, but I'm going to go shopping first, and then we're going to go back that way. So they had an interesting setup in there. And I'm not just covering that on a whim. I'm not just taking a video of this highway on a whim, because there's a point there that if you're in this town and you want to buy a new t-shirt, you do have somewhat limited options. You know, they have a limited selection of clothing and hardware and house goods there. Then you have a Safeway, and then you're gonna have to drive a long way on this highway to Spokane if you want anything else. So there is a point there that, like, even though this city looks really charming when you visit it, then you have to think about all of those things. Or maybe you don't. I don't have to think about those things, but I am. Things related to that as I walk back. So I don't think that we are in far territory here, because we are less than an hour's drive to the edge of a metropolitan area. But in practical terms, you know, there is a hospital of some sort here, but like if you were here and you really needed like serious medicine and stuff, that's an hour away. A lot of services are you know, all the way to Spokane. And point to go along with that is this isn't even far territory, but this is a town of 1,800 people, and the nearest bigger town is 100 miles that way. And this kind of gets into like a discussion I have online, you know, and like when Honedge or something, which I like Honedge, we'll talk about like, I'm in an extremely rural part of New Jersey or Connecticut or something. Until you've been to a place like this, you really don't have anything to compare it with. Where right now, you know, like I said, this county with 10,000 people is 1,000 square miles bigger than Rhode Island, about half the size of Connecticut. It is really hard to compare what that's like until you've seen it. And today we're seeing it. Walking back into the park. I love a covered pedestrian bridge. So I guess my point is I enjoyed visiting here. It was a nice little place to visit on a day trip. And for some people it would be a great place to live. But I'd really look at what are the economics and logistics of a situation like that. You know, there's obviously a lot of industry in the farming industry around here and the freight side. Beyond that, probably a lot of service industry jobs, a lot of remote workers now. Oh, I found my pen. I dropped it and now I found it. So lucky. So again, like I've talked about so many of these little towns, nice place to visit for a couple hours, and probably a good place to live at certain points in your life, but like, you know, there's probably challenges to it. I probably don't need to belabor that point, especially when I can look down that softly running water. Bus gets here in 30 minutes, leaves here another 50. Assume some of that is schedule padding. And so today on my birthday, I had the day open. I decided to go a little bit further out. Not as far out as I could go, but I wanted to take kind of a short little trip. I didn't want to get too intense. Later on, I might go to places like Leavenworth on Amtrak, stuff like that, go to White Salmon. Might go out to Montana on the High Line on the Empire Builder. But today I was feeling kind of tired, and bus fare here and back will be $3. And I got to see one more little place, and hopefully it kind of fills out the story. And for me, it also fills out the story because, you know, I'm from Washington, was born here. But like I said in some of the Spokane videos, especially here, this is all, you know, terra incognito for me, except passing through at like 4 a.m. on the Empire Builder. So I hope you enjoyed seeing a little bit of the town, fills in a little bit of the picture. I had a fun time being here. So we'll see where I go next.